What's up, guys? It's Flash back with some more charts and another video. Today's Thursday, May 30th, 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to go through what I refer to as a puzzle pieces video and just try to put these puzzle pieces together. Look at some broader markets, equities, gold and silver, etc. Do some ratios, kind of see where we're at in the bigger picture, ultimately to help us identify where we think our investments should be to take advantage of what's happening. And if you follow me, you kind of will know that my general thesis is I'm kind of comparing today, 2024, to late 1960s/1970s, where the inflation really picks up steam, and that kind of makes the S&P 500, for example, go sideways for 10 or 15 years. Haven't seen anything like that, obviously since 2000 to 2013 or so. But this fractal is actually from the 1970s, and so this is generally what I think is going to be happening to the S&P 500. Whether this plays out or doesn't, who's to say, right? But I'm going to kind of follow along and see how well it matches up, and maybe we just keep going up and up. But some of the ratios, I think, kind of tell me otherwise. So just for example, if we go back onto the candle chart on the S&P, this also, we haven't really gone anywhere since I've been making these videos, back in earlier this year. Like this is kind of telling you how long this can take to play out. Just how long, like, for example, the uranium bull market could be, and I'll show you that as well. So I think my message here is stay the course, have some patience in whatever investment that you have. I would say don't get caught up in day-to-day price action, although it can be fun to keep track of, and just zoom out and have the bigger picture in mind, and don't necessarily sweat the small stuff. But moving over to the NASDAQ, we're kind of bumping our head up against this trend line, which I have. We'll see if this holds true. We could maybe throw a trend line of some sort right here and just see how this plays out. But yeah, I mean, NVIDIA I'll kind of jump over to NVIDIA. It's going up again. So if we go up on the daily, I mean, NVIDIA, I feel like, is just holding everything up, the stock market itself. So I think we got to wait for a correction in NVIDIA if we want to see a correction in the stock market. And general statement, I'm not sure I really want the S&P 500 and NVIDIA and all this stuff to be breaking down, right? Because I think that will drag down, for example, our uranium investments for a short time, right? But ultimately, we want to be outperforming the S&P. We want to be outperforming the NASDAQ and gold and silver. But some of the other ratios that I like to look at are the SPX measured in PPI. So, for example, when inflation runs hot, like the S&P can really roll over and really take a long time to recover, specifically against inflation measured in PPI, Producer Price Index. So, if we zoom in here on the monthly, this could be a bullish engulfing bearish candle. And again, with the monthly close tomorrow for May, we'll see where we end up, but looks like it could be kind of like an inside candle on the monthly. We got to kind of see. Another huge ratio, I think, that dictates a lot of things, capital flows, is gold divided by S&P 500. And I think we're on the cusp here of rounding the ship, turning the ship, and capital will begin to flow into gold and commodity-driven assets. This is a huge ratio that I like to look at, and it's just taking its sweet time. We could remain in here until this time next year, year and a half, September 2025 even. So again, it's a patient game. It's a long game. There's a lot of time. You don't have to rush anything per se. Another ratio, which actually is showing us a breakdown, is the gold to silver ratio. This is what you want to see in a commodity bull market. You want silver outperforming gold, general statement. And that's what we're seeing here. So we could probably draw some horizontal support resistance lines in here to get a better idea now that we've finally broken down, but maybe I'll do that in another video. We looked at NVIDIA. If we look at Bitcoin, I have this bowl on here, or this dome rather. Make this a little bit thicker. And this is kind of what Patrick Karim on North Star, he calls this like the Bitcoin dome of doom per se. Not, whether this plays out or not, or maybe we break out of this dome, but it is a resistance line. There's a couple different points, connection points on here. So to an extent, it is a valid resistance line. So we're just going to continue following along, and who's to say what happens. If we jump into some Mag 7 stocks, I have Google, Apple, Tesla. Google's making a run. I thought it would maybe halt up here. This looked like a rising wedge, double top formation, but hey, we busted right through, and it looks like Google hasn't really slowed down. But if we actually look at Amazon, another Mag 7 stock, similar looking chart, but we are kind of hitting our head. We are having some resistance here. So that's kind of interesting. Take a look at Apple. Recently I've had this rounded dome on this as well. And, great green bullish month. Took out a lot of previous month's price action. And if we drop in on the weekly, we'll kind of we'll see what happens here. It looks kind of like a bull flag, or I'm not sure. And Tesla, Tesla is just struggling, man. It just needs time. Not much has changed there. Okay, over to gold, because gold is just looking so good, and we can drop down onto the weekly. For the month of May, we've kind of been consolidating sideways per se, but ultimately, I'm so bullish on gold. I think I'd like to buy some gold coins, honestly. I haven't yet, but I think it's just a good idea in general to have some. Maybe we have some gold, have some Bitcoin. I'm not really sure yet. We can actually look at the gold to Bitcoin ratio, which is another fun ratio. And if we flip it, if we invert it, pretty much just looks like that Bitcoin chart that I showed, because Bitcoin is just so strong. But this would be interesting to play out. I have this green projection of a moving average if we do end up curling up. But man, you kind of wonder, what if gold holds its ground against Bitcoin in this little quadrant right here, and we end up going up the bowl? It really makes you wonder what Bitcoin really is, what people claim it to be. Story for another day. Silver looking explosive as ever. This could also consolidate, could go sideways if it wanted to, but in the past we've seen silver move super quickly. Like right here, I feel like we could do something like this and consolidate. So we'll see. Silver looks good, and then you have your GDX. Little proxy for some gold miners. We got CCJ. Both look pretty similar. And I mean, this is kind of what I'm thinking. If we kind of push this down here, this is a bull pattern, a cup of some sort, and ultimately I think we could do something like this. That's how crazy it could get. I'm not sure yet, but that's how I'm thinking about GDX and CCJ and some of those gold and silver miners. We'll stay on the miner train. We'll look at XOP, oil and gas explorers. Still consolidating still retesting after consolidation, and then OIH. Still looks one and the same as it's always looked. This is on the monthly time frame. These things take forever to play out. While we're here, we'll take a look at oil. Oil has seen some weakness recently, but I think it's just a matter of time until we continue up, honestly, with inflation. We'll look at URA, one of my favorites. Upwards and onwards. A little bit boring here, we're just going up. So I think that's great. And so, okay, here's a really important ratio. Dow Jones measured in gold. And this is insane. This is a huge, what appears to be a very monumental breakdown that not a ton of people are talking about. So if we look back, we did the same thing back in June of 2002. We did the same thing back in April of 1972. This is a big deal. It's a huge deal. And for example, here's kind of the icing on the cake for this specific chart is if we add CCJ to this chart. Simple. Okay, what happens when this thing breaks down? When the Dow Jones underperforms gold, when gold outperforms the Dow Jones, CCJ rips. It absolutely takes off to the upside. We could put this on the log scale to get a better sense. But I mean, so I think we're looking in the right place with uranium. I mean, you can already see what CCJ has done. We're already ripping. It's already cleared its high pretty much if we look at this chart specifically. Now imagine if we take, you know, the next 2,000 days. That takes us out to like October of 2029. Like, this is a long-term trade, long-term hold for all my uranium boys out there. Like, this chart, it's given us a signal, a huge signal right here. So I think it's something we keep our eye on. Similarly, Russell measured in gold, kind of just breaking down. It's a slow, long process. We looked at gold versus Bitcoin. Last one I want to look at is, we saw how big of a breakout gold has had. Look at URA measured in gold. We can throw the moving average on there. We can kind of see this blue bowl for the moving average projection. You know, I think this is bullish. You know, we've broken out of a sideways horizontal. We consolidated in a bullish falling wedge, so to speak, and now I think we're continuing our way up this bull. So that's good for URA. It's good for GDX and CCJ and XOP. And general statement, I think, you know, if this plays out, this is how we're going to see this rotation out of general equities, you know, out of stocks like NVIDIA and AI, out of Bitcoin, so to speak, and into URA, GDX, CCJ, XOP. Like, that is what this is telling me. The great rotation is underway. Drop me a like if you found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.